take you through a small practice session here today, see how it goes, let you know how I go about practicing, and maybe give you a few tips on the way. See how it goes. We're at Scratch Golf today, down in Wandsworth. Trackman IO. Pretty good when it's as cold as it is outside. I'm probably just going to go on the range today. And just add myself as a guest. Start practice. What's my plan for today? Work on some of my tendencies. Haven't been playing a lot recently, but I want to work on keeping my height in my swing. I feel like I lose a bit of height in transition. Work on that. I think that affects my consistency of strike. Get my body moving well, yeah. Let's see. I'll take you through it. So I'm going to just loosen up here, get that on. What we're hitting, just start off with a few little wedges, just to get loosened off. Usually wouldn't have probably any alignment sticks or anything down like that at this part. Just try and get the body moving. Probably need a glove somewhere. Yeah, I'm 41 now, so I need to try and loosen myself off a bit before we get started. Normally just trying to work on having good rhythm. Just try and set a good sort of tone to the practice session from the start. I often say something in my head like back and hit. I find that helps me sort of keep good rhythm and feel in sync through the hit, like I'm hitting with everything there, like as I say, some sort of back and hit at impact, hitting with the club head, my hands, my middle, all in sync. So let's just try and get just loosened off here at the start. Trying to feel sort of solid in my feet. Just a stable center, and just try and keep my height and ease myself into it a little bit. So certainly not really worried about distance or anything really right now, more just finding good rhythm, checking all my fundamentals are pretty good. Then once I start feeling relatively loose, I'm always trying to ingrain good habits, good fundamentals whenever I'm practicing. So for a start, I would generally try and make sure that I'm aimed straight up the line here on the screen. So I'm just putting a pole there just to check that that I am aiming pretty much straight up the target line. I'm keeping my sort of awareness of where, you know, straight aim is, where the target is. Another pole here. In fact, actually, I'll put a club down there so that we can keep that pole for something else maybe later. So this is this club here is nothing to do with my distance from the ball or anything like that. It's just to check that my feet are parallel to the target line. My target line's here, straight up the green pole, straight up the dotted line on the screen. And I want my feet parallel to that. I want everything parallel, you know, kind of my hips, my shoulders. I have a tendency for my hips to get a little bit open, so I'm sort of often working on squaring those up. And then I just carry on hitting a few more. Just trying to get a feel for it. Trying to make sure I'm turning through positively. There we are, we're getting close to sort of normalish distance. So, you know, it's great that all the data you can get in here. Thankfully, which is nice to see, my path is pretty neutral, my face is pretty neutral. Hitting it, carrying it about 130, which is a little short of what I would hit a full wedge. If I try and hit one full, should be more like 135 to 140. If I put a bit more speed in, so 134. Okay, so go up a club. Let's go and hit a few. Let's hit a few 8 irons. Change the club on the screen. Pretty quick and easy to do. A rough yardage target to look at. 160. That'll do. Okay. So I'm often, as my basics, checking my grip is not, I have a tendency for my grip to get too strong, sort of round this way. I often use the little line on the grip there as a bit of a guide for a sort of a straight shot, or I'm often trying to make sure it doesn't get too strong. My grip tends to get to the right of this line, so I'm often practicing trying to feel that it's almost, you know, straight down the club, feeling slightly weak for me. Hands are nicely together as a unit on the club. I'm feeling often I've got a bit of connection with my arms to my body. Solid legs sort of switched on and activated to give myself like a solid center to pivot around with my swing. And often my focus is almost on my chest, just trying to turn it back and then almost hit with it through round that solid center. Pull down a little bit. The other great, you know, you can see in here as well. You can actually see impact. So I can kind of see my club face is turning down a bit. Yeah, look, my face got 3 degrees closed on that one. Path was pretty good, but my face was a little bit shut. So So as I said, I'm really trying to work on keeping my head a bit stiller. I often sort of, as I'm transitioning, I feel like I lose height, which then causes me to want to back up out of the hit a little bit, which doesn't really help my consistency too much of strike or anything. So trying to feel switched on, connected with my arms to the body, back and hit. You know, the simplest one for rhythm to play with is that pole move. See, I have that sort of nudge. So it's important to just check that these sorts of things you do just check, because you nudge them with a ball or a club or a foot or something. Sometimes that looks a bit better now. And it's also important to actually be looking down. You might put this guide down. It's important to be, excuse me, it's important to be looking down and checking that you are actually square to it. So I look pretty good there with my feet. Connected with the arms to the body. That was pretty good, that one. That doesn't mean to say necessarily that we're everyone is going to play their best golf from perfect square stance. You know, often I'm just putting another club down there because I was sort of so far away from it with my feet that I couldn't really tell if I was parallel or not. You should give that a little bit of a shove along that way. The clubhead's not in the way. You know, often when I even find it that to drop the right foot back, maybe especially with drive, I feel like I can get a bigger turn, and especially maybe when you're getting a bit older, you could try that. But it's important to have something to reference it to. If I just say, oh, I'm better when I stand aiming right a bit with my feet, well, if you don't have something to check it to, then you don't really know how much you're doing it or keeping it the same all the time. A little bit out of the toe there, it felt like. Yeah, the video showed that. Definitely slightly out of the toe. Otherwise not too bad. I felt like I kept my height a bit better on that one. Struck that pretty well. So it's important to build a practice station. You want to be ingraining good habits all the time. You'll see all the best players in the world, all pros, but 90% of their practice is probably certainly done with something down for their foot alignment. But say you're having a tendency to sort of come over the top and your path is left through the hit. You can build a station, especially if you're practicing on mats like this. There's lots of different things you can do to help correct that, or certainly give you a feel. So you might, if you're coming over the top, you might put a pole like that, which is favouring sort of draw path, and try and feel. Make sure you don't hit the stick. You don't have to be that tight with it. Obviously, that is quite tight. You could just have it, just something that's there, or you could put something. You could just put something past the ball here, like it could even just be a bit of grass or mud or whatever, past the ball there, to know, like, don't hit the tee, don't hit the tee peg. Basically, you know, if you've passed it left, if you hit the tee, you've passed the club too far left. But we'll try one here with the pole like that. So to try and encourage me to keep my path on a more drawy plane through the ball. I mean, it did for me. It moved my path, which was pretty neutral before, to sort of 2 degrees right. And I do often have a tendency to my path to maybe get a little bit too left. I see most shots as a little draw, but I'm sort of always fighting left path. So I often practice with this kind of station, not always with the pole, often with the tee on the inside there, just after the ball. Oh, pretty good. That was actually pretty neutral path, but that felt like a good swing. What else? You could do lots of things. So this is just for if you're struggling a bit with coming over the top. You're trying to I'm trying to focus on pushing this club head sort of down and away from me through the hit. You could try putting it there and see if that that helps. I often find that if you're struggling with the dreaded shanks, you can, if you put something on the outside of the ball here, you don't want to, the aim is that you're not to hit the pole, so it could pull your path, your path of the club back towards you slightly. You're encouraging you to hit it more out of the toe of the club rather than the heel. Obviously, if you were possibly coming too much from the inside, you could do an opposite thing with the pole like that. You can use objects before the ball. I often prefer them after because it feels like it's a more positive way to deliver it, thinking about what the club's doing after the ball rather than trying to hit it from the inside. I feel like it's better to push the club down the way, but you could put an object here if you were struggling with coming over the top and say, I want to miss that. You probably want something that's got a little bit of height to it, more for that kind of drill, like a head cover. You could put a head cover like that. Just say, right, I've got to avoid hitting the head cover to help path it from the inside. So there's lots you can do in building a practice station. You've got an hour or 100 bucket, 100 balls. You can ingrain some pretty good habits. You can really make some positive changes in that time by building a good practice station. What else can you do in a practice station? You could do lots of people are struggling with, if you can see me there, but lots of people are struggling with sort of falling back through the hit, hitting shots heavy, being quite slippy through the hand through the ball, like lifty, rather than a lot of good players, they've got a slight downward hit and good extension through the ball, which creates that club face control. They're more here in the hit than like this. So you could put something down the line. I think this is a very good way to practice. I even often do this. This can help your path. This can help that downward hit that I've got to take this tee or little bit of grass or whatever it is on the range, and I've got to hit down through the ball and take that object at the same time. Creeping slightly inside that pole, aren't I? But that's all right if you're trying to sort of favour a draw. So I'm going to try and swing, make sure that I push this club head sort of down and away, taking that tee and kind of keeping the club head as wide as I can through and up the line of the shot, up that green pole, down and away through that. Just working on that for a few shots. That was a little bit thin, that one. But yeah, can be really helpful just building some sort of a practice station that's ingraining good habits, but also giving you feedback if you're achieving, you know, what you want to achieve. You can do this the other way. If you're hitting shots heavy, you could put something behind the ball here. You know, I shouldn't hit that. If I've got a slightly downward hit, I shouldn't hit that tee. I've put it, I don't know, 3 inches behind the ball. I hope I won't hit that. I don't think that. No, that was quite tight. Maybe don't put it quite as tight as that. Well, you could. There's no harm in practicing sort of slightly extreme to help change things a little bit. So I've moved it back about 4 inches behind the ball, just to make sure that you're, you know, getting that slightly downward hit. I definitely think personally I prefer putting it on the other side. That feels, generally I feel like putting the object on the target side of the ball is a more sort of positive way to practice. So I put it back there. That definitely feels more helpful to me, to really try and push that club head down and away and up the line, and keep this, get this nice width here through the hit, rather than being sort of narrow and in here. Been talking so much that I've sort of forgotten I've been come down here tonight to try and keep my height a little bit better. All right, let's hit something a bit longer. Let's hit a few 4 irons. Change the club. 4 iron. Okay. So hopefully all of this practice session, I'm ingraining, you know, sort of good target awareness by having this pole here up the line. I'm ingraining good habits in my body alignment. So obviously you're not allowed to put these down on the course, but if you practice like this all the time, there's a good chance you'll aim well when you get out there to play. Same sort of stuff. Didn't feel like my best swing. A little bit across. It didn't say my path was actually too far left, but it felt like it was. That felt a bit better. And what else can you do? I mean, these machines, Trackman's pretty accurate. Okay, I'm not hitting the ball that I would play with, or maybe I could actually. I've got some balls here. Maybe that's probably a good idea if you really want the most accurate data. Okay, I wouldn't recommend getting all your yardage so that you hit the ball inside, but you might get a good idea. So I usually play Pro V1. Normal one, but you can obviously get a good idea of how far you're hitting it if you come down here for a practice session too. Not my best swing. 212 that carried, yeah. So I think you always really want to be looking at that number. The total yardage really is somewhat meaningless. This is the number that really matters, how far you're carrying it, because you can kind of calculate if you're playing on firm ground or soft ground, you can allow for that, but all good players, or certainly professionals, they'll be just entirely focused on what their carry distances are. So I can say I've got 165 yards to the pin, and the greens are reasonably firm. It's probably an 8-iron for me. I'm thinking, well, I want to land it 160 because it's probably going to take a hop and release 5 yards. So I want to know my carry number. If I just knew, like, oh, I hit 8-iron, 165, it's like, well, is that, when it is that when it's dry? Is that when it's soft? So really, what you want to know is your carry numbers. If you got, because you then also know, oh, I can carry that bunker from the tee or whatever it is. Well, that one didn't go very well. I've got shorter hitting the Pro V1. 204 that only went. It didn't feel like that bad a swing actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the total. I'm going to put my club speed on there instead of the total. Where is that? I'm going to turn that off and I'm going to put my club speed on instead, because that feels like more valuable information for me. A lot of the time when I come down and hit in these simulators, because I'm not the longest hit in the world. I'm trying to keep my speed up in my swing. It's great if you want to come in here and hit balls and see how fast you can swing it and get immediate feedback on whether or not that one was quicker or not. Oh, I felt a bit underneath that one. Yeah, my path was a bit right, 1.7 right. But 217 carry, that's about what I carry a 4-iron, about 220 with a good 4-iron. If it's warm, obviously, like that would be on a sort of 20-degree day. If it's cold, like it is outside now, that can hugely affect how far you're hitting the ball. That felt right. Was a little bit. I left the face open. Right, but the balls are bouncing a bit today. Usually do that. Still got the carry, but that was a bit right. How far right was that? How far off that is that? Let's take off. I'll take this impact thing off and put on the side. How far to the right? So I hit that 12 yards right. Let me get there. What are we going to take off? Impact. Let's take those off. Put on how far right I actually hit that. 12 yards right. So it might have just caught the edge of the green, possibly. That felt left. Hit it well though, it's gone longish way for me, but I pulled it, which you generally would expect. A pull would typically go further than if you pushed it. Sorry, just tidied that up. See, and interesting, like my speed wasn't actually as quick. It was only 97 instead of 99, but because I pulled it, it went further. Okay, what else could we talk about? A couple more of these. Yeah, knowing your club, knowing your yardages. Typically it's 10 yards in between. I hit my 8-iron 160, I hit my 7-iron 170, I hit my 6-iron 180. That kind of thing. If you get a good solid number for one of your clubs, you can often be pretty close in estimating what the rest of them are. it's not a hard draw. I mean, you can do that, you know, I think you're often best off doing your yardage outside, which you can do on your own. You know, well, if you've got a Bushnell laser or something, you can stand at what you think you hit a 7-iron distance from the pin, and especially if you're on your own, hit 2 or 3 balls, hit until you hit one good, and say, well, I hit that one good, and you can go up to the green and see exactly where it landed, and you've got a pretty good idea then of how far you hit that club. God, that wasn't a good swing. That's it. So often if you do it a poorer shot, give yourself a breather. It's probably, you know, have a few practice swings, work on what you've been working on, rather than sort of rushing in necessarily and hitting another one straight away. I hit that better, but it didn't actually feel like the best swing. Okay, so checking I am square down here, look pretty square there. Switched on in my middle, back and hits. Bit leaky again. How far right was that one? 13 yards right. Overcorrecting myself a little bit again. It is my face, but that's my tendency, you know. I see everything kind of my ideal way to play golf for me generally is I see everything, my normal shot, with a little draw, and if I miss it, it doesn't draw, so I'm kind of somewhat trying to take the left side out of play generally. You know, I want my miss to kind of be one that just probably goes slightly up the right side and it doesn't turn over, but it's not too catastrophic a miss. Pretty decent. What we got? 218. Well, we'll talk a little bit about hitting some draws and fades, I guess, because that's often that's a good way to practice. It's good to find your you know, help you find sort of more neutral path. You know, if you're slicing it, it's probably good practice to say, okay, I'm going to try and hit a few draws, or if you know you're overly hooking it, let's, you know, hit a few fades, and see if we can, and that can often help sort of neutralize out your path a bit. Or if you switch on your awareness, you can you know, maybe feel, oh, what am I doing differently? So for me, if I wanted to draw a shot, so basically, the main two things that I'm doing is I've got my neutral grip, which I talked about before, and I've got my thumb pretty much straight down the club on the little line. If I want to draw it, I'll strengthen it slightly. So I've shut the face already. To, you know, to hit a draw, you want the face just needs to be closed to your path. Obviously, you need to hit it out the middle of the club. If you hit it out the heel or the toe, that can affect things. But I will just, if I want to hit a draw, I'll strengthen my grip ever so slightly, and then I'll play the ball slightly further back in my stance, so I'm catching it, you know, earlier in the arc. If the swing is, you know, the club is pathing like this, if I move it back, I'm more likely to catch it, you know, hit it from the inside or the path when the path is going right. If I move it forwards, like if we hit a fade, I'll favour the ball position slightly further forward. I'll do the opposite. I'll weaken my grip slightly, favour the ball forwards, but I'll actually be feeling the same things. I'm changing it all in my setup. I'm actually really feeling exactly the same sort of path and the way I hit the shot. So if I try and hit a draw, and the draw is, the old school was that you aimed your face where you wanted the ball to finish, and you closed your body, you lined up your body for where you wanted to start. But the modern school method, which I find much more, and with Trackman and things, and I find it much better way to play, that you aim the face where you want it to start. So I've got a slightly strong grip. I want it to start a little up the right of my target. So by putting the ball back, that kind of does that a little bit for me. Ball's further back in the stance. My grip is strong, but now I'm really, I'm trying to feel the same stuff. I'm possibly feeling myself swinging slightly right of that pole, but that's mainly because I've put the ball back in my stance. So hopefully we'll hit a draw here. It's a little bit toey, but it did draw. Sort of aim the club face, I've got slightly strong grip, I've aimed the club face where I want the ball to start, and then I've just tried to make sure that I swing right of that. On the opposite, if I want to try and hit a fade, so instead of having my grip, neutral, I feel it slightly on the weak side. So it's slightly left of that line, and I've moved the ball forward in my stance. So where I want this one to start, I don't know, 5 yards left of the dotted line, somewhere up in here, somewhere. So I've got slightly weak grip. I'll aim the face up there where I want to start. I've got it forwards in my stance. My feet are probably, slightly open, but the main thing is the face is aiming just up the left side and the ball is forward. But I'm not trying to cut across this. Because I've weakened my grip and the ball's forward, I can still feel quite a neutral path, but it would be very hard for me to draw it because of the ball being forwards and my grip being weak. I think I might have overdone that a little bit. I did. Got the shape, but too much chatting. Try and do another one of those. But I find this often good. We can get so sort of caught up in technique and things. This is a much sort of more, we're playing golf now a bit more, getting in tune with our feel rather than so hard with technique. So slightly weaker grip. I'm going to try and aim the face just up the left side, balls forward slightly in the stance. But I'm making the same swing that I usually would. That felt better, but still slightly overcut. But that's generally the way you would, say that. One of my old friends had always said it broke the line. He said he never wanted it to break the line. The line is here, so a fade, they should always be coming up this side and not breaking that line, which you would use on the course. He says that because if the pin was, if the pin was, you would probably more likely to hit a fade when the pin is on the right-hand side of the green. So you can aim up the bulk of the green, and if you hit it straight, it's good. But it's hopefully favouring working into the flag slightly. But the most dangerous shot is if you were to double cross it really and actually hit a hook. But I feel like because if I've gone with the slightly weak grip and the ball forwards, it's actually very difficult for me to hook that shot. Most likely it would only happen if I hit it out of the toe of the club. Let's try one more fade. Pretty good. That was a bit better. Lose a little bit of distance on a fade, typically not too much. That's better, if you were using a sort of choppy method, you will lose a lot of distance, but by almost, I've weakened my grip and the ball's forward, but I'm almost still trying to feel like I'm a draw pass, so it's like more of a going cut than a sort of choppy, spinny one. So I'll try and hit another draw, so slightly stronger grip, aim the face up that right side, slightly where I want it to start, ball's back, feet are probably ever so slightly shut, but then normal, swinging just right of that club face. Felt like I overdid that a bit. I did. At least it drew, but that was big time. Look, my path was 8 degrees right, so that's maybe a bit excessive. Try one more of those. Come on. Less talking and try and actually hit one properly. That was pretty good. 224. That, you know, you get more out of it certainly, especially if I was hitting it off the tee and I wanted to hit like a chasing 3-iron off the tee. I probably would generally be favouring that drawier shot. Let's hit a couple of drivers before we run out of time. What time is it? I've got 9 minutes. Couple of drivers. Okay. So again, often with this this kind of setup, I would move this over so I've got I can actually get a reference of where my feet. Again, not anything to do with distance from the ball, it's purely for my alignment, which, as I talked about before a little bit, I actually find for me that sometimes having my right foot back slightly helps me, get a better turn, but I'm constantly monitoring it, making sure I'm not going to end up kind of like this if I didn't. Felt a bit right. Was a bit right. Not very good rhythm or sync on that. It's so important, rhythm and your rhythm, and I mean by sync that, as you're coming down into the ball, everything, I'm hit, the timing of my club head and the hands and my middle and everything is hitting in sync. Bottomy. That was a bit thin. Not at the bottom, but thin below in the face, but often straighter shots. So I'm still working on the same stuff. Good grip. Aim the face straight up that line. Solid, switched on, activated almost in the body, like this is all solid and sort of ready to go. Not tense or grippy, but sort of ready to go, like, I don't know, you were a basketball player, sort of, getting ready to move or whatever. Stable centre, connected with the arms. I'm just turn back almost with the chest and then through in sync. A little bit leaky. Not dreadful, but how far out was that? 18 yards right, so it would have been fighting to hold the edge of the fairway probably. But you can watch your spin rate. The spin rate was good there though, 2-3. That's probably in the right kind of region that I would want it. Felt a bit loose. Broke the tee. else can we talk about driving? Well, we've talked about like hitting a more controlled one, which I often, like a fairway finder, I'd actually tee the ball lower. Maybe this tee is possibly not even low enough. I mean, I generally tee the ball relatively low anyway, but if I wanted to try and make sure I hit one straight, I'd tee it down. The reason for that is it's more difficult to hit sort of extreme shapes from a low tee, and I'll often even hold the club slightly shorter, but everything else is really the same. Probably going to be a slightly lower flighted shot and not carry as far as a full one would, but hopefully it's got a stronger chance of going straight. That's a bit at the bottom, but you know, I use that shot quite a lot. It's almost like a sort of very positive too. It's like a two-wood shot almost, where you still want to get it out there, but there's more of a premium on it being straight than long. That was at the toe of the club a little bit, so that's, yeah, just turned over a bit. I think I lost another tee. Maybe the ball tee. Yeah, my path is a bit right, but that all looks relatively okay. Speed is a bit down tonight for sure. Come on, right, back to a more fullish shot. Maybe we just work on some speed. How fast can I swing it now? .114. It's not Rory McIlroy, but 282 carry. Oh yeah, so I often feel, yeah, if I've got that foot back slightly, for me, I feel like I can generate more speed through a bigger turn. .115, 287. It's not too bad for a cold wintry night. One more, and then we'll just warm down, and that'll be that. Okay, a little bit fadey. Path was 2 degrees, a little bit right, but not too bad, not too bad. All right, so I don't know if you guys have kind of got anything out of that, but hopefully maybe something. But just building a good practice station is it's so key really to getting better, ingraining, you know, really good habits. So you go out in the course, it's almost, your alignment is the first thing to check. If you're, you know, if you're missing it right, you might just be aiming there. It's kind of the first thing, otherwise you're going to start making a compensating movement to get it back online, sort of fix one fault with another. So yeah, build a good practice station, and you can build one to help, you know, ingrain better, avoid your tendencies, or try and sort of just eke them in a better direction. By the sort of stuff we talked about, you know, with a pole like that, if you're a sort of over the top sort of person, or you're struggling a little bit with slicing it or fading it too bad, that can be helpful thing. And actually, so can just being aware of the hit. Like, it's obviously your club face too, just practicing like little swings. Sort of, I often would feel like, okay, the face, that's the club face is square there at address. You could almost even shut your eyes and feel, okay, that's where my back of my left hand is now. What does it feel like to return that back to that position? Or maybe it's in a feeling in your right hand, so you could be sort of feeling kind of like back and hit, or 1, 2 and on 2 at the hit, you're feeling like you're returning your hand, or maybe it's in your chest or something. We all feel things differently, back to square at the hit. So I've built that there to favour us, as you know, a slightly drawier path. And now I can feel that I'm just trying to return almost the back of my left hand back to where it was at the start. Back down. So, you know, little mini swings at home, even in front of a mirror, just feeling sort of aware of where the club face is, because that's, you know, so much of that really is the big difference between, you know, really good players and not so good players, is obviously it's their control over the club face and their path, and their, you know, through hitting lots and lots of balls, they're very good at making the club face match the path on each shot. But you can improve very quickly just by spending a bit of time being aware, making lots of little practice swings at home or at the range, to try and improve that. That was a little bit thin, but not too bad. Okay, thank you, hope it was worthwhile, and yeah, play well.